Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Today we're going to talk about what a lot of women go through in their life, and that is navigating midlife, which can be a transformative journey filled with both excitement and uncertainty. Most women dread it. They have no idea what to expect. Images of Sex in the City when Amanda went through her hot flashes was hysterical. I didn't really understand it then until I got into midlife myself. So for a lot of women, this phase, it brings forth questions and challenges about identity, purpose, and fulfillment, not to mention all the physical changes we go through emotionally, physically. We look into our mirror, we're like, who is that staring back at us? Things don't fit properly anymore. There's so many things that women go through, and there's the question from a lot of us, what is next? To grappling with the notion of whether there's more to life. The midlife transition can feel overwhelming. However, we can combat this with the knowledge and compassion we have for ourselves. Women have the power to overcome these challenges and embrace the beauty of this phase. By delving into their inner selves and exploring what's already within, women can gain the insight and resilience needed to shatter their personal status quo and create the life they desire. Through conscious healing and self-discovery, we can unlock the inner magic, paving the way for the best and most fulfilling phase of our lives. I mean, the kids are gone. They've flown the coop. Our world is our oyster, really. And I think a lot of society just really doesn't embrace this phase of women's life. But there's a lot of people like our guests today that are bringing this into the forefront. Today, we're joined by a remarkable guest who is on a mission to empower women in midlife to embrace their inner magic and redefine their journey. Please welcome Kathy Batista, a mindfulness, mindset, and mood coach specializing in guiding women through the transformative phase of midlife. With her extensive certifications in life designer coaching, thought coaching, quantum time techniques, and mindfulness facilitation, Kathy brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to our conversation today. Through her coaching practice, Kathy helps women navigate the questions and uncertainties that often arise during midlife, empowering them to discover their true purpose and create a life filled with fulfillment and joy. Get ready to be inspired as we explore the power of conscious healing and self-discovery with Kathy Batista. Hey, Kathy, welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast.
Thank you, Nancy.
It's so good to have you here. And as we were both discussing, it's like we're both in the midst of rain. It's very cozy weather here as we're recording this. And, it bodes well for like getting things done or laying in bed, whichever you choose.
Either or.
Yes. So Kathy, I'm so happy to have you on. And I think we're talking about a really important subject because there's a whole group of women that really are feeling kind of left out, or they're getting to this phase of their life where they're like, what is next? What's next? I've raised the kids. This career is not fulfilling anymore, or maybe this marriage, like I need to bring something more into this marriage, or they're freshly divorced, starting their new life. Like, what is next for me? I'm 40, maybe 50 years old, 60 years old. It's midlife. So there's so many gifts that we have in this midlife, and you're a mindset, mindfulness, and mood coach for women. And you have this great test on your website, which I'll put in the show notes and we'll talk about later on. It's the 3 pillars of growth, which is she offers for free for you to take the quiz. And I took it last night. And I'm a mood. So there's
Yeah.
three pillars, and I guess mood is the starting point. Before we dive into who you are and how you came to do what you're doing, can you explain the three pillars of growth, beginning with mood?
Yeah, definitely. So, mood, mindfulness, and mindset are these three pillars. And it's this signature program that I created because I actually did it the opposite way. I did it in the reverse order. And so I was like, okay, there has to be an easier way to get to this point. And so, what happens with mood, and that mood is literally an M word because I already had mindfulness and mindset. So mood encompasses nervous system regulation, somatic work, polyvagal theory, vagus nerve work, all of the amazing tools and techniques that we have to bring a regulated state to our body. And why this is the first pillar and why it's so important that we all spend a little bit of time each day, or sometimes a lot of bit of time on this, is because how we receive information is directly related to the state that our nervous system is in. So if we're in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, any of those F's, right? We are taking in everything as a potential threat, as a frustration, as an annoyance, right? And so then we take it in, and our output is our behavior. And so the only way we can really change our output is actually by changing that filter of our input. So it's really important to focus on your regulation of your moods and your body. And we want to spend the majority of our day in a parasympathetic state. So now, once our body, so this three pillar approach is really like a mind, body, soul sort of approach. And so now that our body is, I always refrain from saying calmer because it's really regulated. Like we
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to feel our emotions and move through them. So once our body feels in a state of acceptance, ready to move forward, now we can focus on mindfulness. And so for me, mindfulness, yes, will always be focusing on the present moment with non-judgment, the classic, terms of mindfulness. But for my coaching, is it's like the perfect time to get in touch with and meet your intuition is when you have this mindfulness moment. It's only when we've quieted the outside noise that we're able to hear that inner voice, because a lot of, like, the question you asked, like, what's next, right? Is this it? We already have the answers. We just can't hear ourselves through all the mess. So the mindfulness allows us to get quiet, to hear that inner voice, our intuition, our higher power, whatever you call it, right? And then now we move on to the third pillar, which is mindset. And that's when we can actually make some huge changes in our thought and in our identity, in our approach, how we want to move through the world, who we want to be. So we really need to have this this body, soul, and then mind experience to create the life you desire.
So, one of the ways that you can get regulated is, well, first of all, you start with your body and regulating your chemicals, your cells, your nervous system. And then that body, you become clear in your body, your parasympathetic nervous system. And then you can work on the mindset because the body's not sending all these mixed signals. So you're able to, like, get a focused mindset in your mind. Yeah, I can see how that will really work. Like there's some days where it's like just feels like fight or flight. It's like, nervous out of nowhere. And I know a lot of people in the collective, especially women who are sensitive, this beginning of the year 2024, not just our own nervous system needed to be regulated, but there was a lot going on in the collective that a lot of people were picking up on. So there was anxiety, myself included, and angst out of nowhere. It's like, I can't put my finger on it. I went to a yoga session
Yeah.
and they're like, oh my God, 9 other women said the same thing. Everywhere I was hearing, like, they're like, what is going on? There's so much going on. So we pick up on not just what's in our system, but it's what's going on around us or the people around us. And that's when it's really good to work on yourself, because we should be able to, I try not to use the word should anymore. We would be able to protect ourselves from unwanted energy. Oh, that's not mine. And, not take it on or
Yeah.
recognize it. That's not mine. And so,
Totally, Nancy.
yeah.
Once you start to hear that inner voice, it's clearer what's yours and what's not
Mm-hmm.
yours because we are vibrational beings. So we're picking up what's being out there, right? And so once you're able to know where your compass is, you're able to say, that's not mine, this is mine, or that's not mine, but I know that I can shift that vibration with my vibration, right? So it definitely is helpful to
Mm-hmm.
get clear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, walking it back to where I usually start, you've navigated midlife changes and shifts yourself. And now you're helping other women to tap into their midlife magic. I like that.
Yeah.
Magic, midlife magic. Can you share a bit about your journey and what inspired you to become a go to coach for midlife women?
Yeah, definitely. So I first always say, like, I was shocked to discover first perimenopause. I had no idea what that was. I was very shocked to discover I was in that. And I was shocked to find out that midlife is really about 35 to 70. And so
Yeah, I can
there's
see
a
that.
good chunk of
Wow.
time that women don't even realize that you're in a shift. Carl Jung has this, you're into your second act, the sunset of your life. It happens usually around 35, 40. So there's all these physical, emotional, and mental shifts that just seem to happen around this time.
I loved my
And
35 to 40. Man, I was
oh,
traveling.
nice.
I went to Greece at 38. I felt like a goddess.
Yes, I
And then,
love it. And that's why 35 to 60 is the range. It's because um it's sort of like if we go back to when we were in middle school, not everybody got their period at the same time.
mm-hmm,
Not everybody goes through menopause at the same time. I'm 50 and I'm already 2 years post menopause,
mm-hmm,
and not for any medical reason. It's just my body, right? And so everybody is different. And so for me, that time of 35 to 40, even like 42, 43, was just miserable. I had no
mm,
idea what was going on with my body. I had no idea what was going on with my mind, right? So I felt miserable. And then what compounded it was that I didn't have this way of expressing it, this voice. I didn't have what we have today, like your collective, things like this, memberships. We didn't really have these things. And so I thought there was something wrong with me because on the outside, everything looked amazing. Everything looked great. Family, house, kids, money, job, everything looked amazing. And I felt miserable, horrible, like miserable. So I did the only thing I knew how to do, which was drink a lot, eat a lot, and shop a
mm-hmm.
lot. And I did that for a really long time until, like you hear people say, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I had to then, because I was now feeling miserable, but I was drinking everything away and I was eating and I shopped like my husband used to call the dining room shipping and receiving because I just was buying and sending back, and it was a very tumultuous time. So going on my own journey through therapy and coaching and doctors and trying to figure out what was the matter, finally I was working with a coach and I was like, oh my gosh, I could totally do this. I could help women so that they can answer these questions of, why am I unhappy? What is going on? Is this
Mm-hmm,
it? Is
mm-hmm,
this freaking it? Right? At 40, is this it? Is this what my whole life was? Right. And so it just gives me such a spark to be able to guide women to their own inner compass to answer those questions because we do all have the answers inside of us.
mm-hmm. So, what were you doing before? What was your career before you? I love it that yours, like, it's usually the people's biggest like struggle is what you're gifted to bring into the world yourself. And it seems like,
Yeah.
the midlife alchemy. What were you doing before? What was your profession?
Yeah. So I'm kind of like your classic ADHDer. I have tons of professions, tons of things. But
Sound
to
like
ask
me.
me right, yeah, right before so in my early 30s, um, my youngest is now 18. So at
Mm,
this time, he's in like first grade kindergarten. So I was home a lot. And then I decided to do substitute teaching and
hmm.
substitute paraprofessional teaching. And I think that I have four boys. And so, like I said,
Wow.
my youngest was in kindergarten. So I think what actually was somewhat of a catalyst was spending my day with like 20 of other people's children coming
Uh,
home. So I felt like
yeah.
I was just depleted, right? And
Yes.
so I did stop. And I was stay at home mom for a little bit after
Hmm.
that as well. And so I think that um, I've had a lot of different things that I've loved to do and stuff that
Hmm.
I kind of, I wouldn't say had to do, but I was divorced really early and my two boys were 1 and 3. And so I didn't know what to do. And so I started an earth friendly cleaning company. And it was amazing. It gave me confidence to be able to say I can
Hmm.
take care of myself. And
Hmm.
so all sorts of little jobs here and there.
Wow, a cleaning company. And you got out of, so you can tap into a whole, since you were a teacher before, if you know any of these teachers and using that as your, background in history, there's a lot of people that are in schools aren't like seeing what's being taught in schools. And it's become, my parents are teachers as well. They were more on the professor level, and my mom was an art teacher years ago. But
Mm.
they're being really restrictive on how they can cheat, how they can teach without being able to use their own creative stuff. There's in these little boxes. So they're going to be seeking a whole group of people are going to be seeking something else outside of what they're doing now. So,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
yeah.
And I feel confident. So one of my sons is in education in college
Hmm.
in an education program to become a teacher. And when I see kids, I mean, they're young adults, but when I see these people coming through now, they're really fighting for a different way. And I think that's just amazing and beautiful. And so my hope is that within 10 years, we have a different sort of school system here in
Mhm.
America.
Mm, mm. It's a nice thought. Wonderful. All right, so let's dive into the midlife and shifts. And you emphasize tapping into values and strengths to create a purpose and joy-filled life. How can women identify and leverage these aspects to take aligned action and find fulfillment and purpose in their life?
Yeah. I think that the answer to a lot of these questions that we've talked about, like what's next or why am I unhappy, is it lies in value work. It lies in figuring out what value is missing from your life right now. And I have a lot of people that talk about core values. You have, your 5 core values that stay with you from day one to the day you die. And sure, I'll get on board with that. But I also feel like we have a ton of values that need to be expressed in different ways. And so a lot of times with this unhappiness is coming because you aren't expressing a value or you're not receiving that value. And there's a fun little exercise that I love to do with people because it can take us from thinking, oh, my value is honesty. Like we have all these prestigious values, right? And that's great. And who doesn't want to value honesty? But there's these micro values that we need and want in our life. And so I often say, you know what? Walk into your house, and when you get into your living room, what do you want to feel? How do you want to feel when you're in your living room? How do you want your guests to feel when they walk in? And so now we have some descriptive words, some adjectives that actually lend themselves to saying, okay, where am I getting that in my life? Where am I bringing that in? And I have a lot of people answer this differently. It's comfort. They want it to be comfortable. Some
Mhm.
people want it to be like pristine and like beautiful, right? So where are you getting beauty? Is there
Mm.
beauty missing from your life, whether it's in the form of taking care of yourself so you feel beautiful, or whether it's that you used to love artwork and you're missing it now, right? So based on your descriptive words of how you want this room to feel to you and other people, we can really kind of just scratch the surface of maybe what's missing for you.
That is such a great way to find that feeling because you can, like, you walk into your living room every day and comfortable, safe, nurtured, loved is something that comes to mind when I think about my living room
Yeah.
space. So you think about those feelings. How would you like your living room? And then you cultivate that within your own self, right?
Yeah. Or where can you bring that in? Right.
Okay.
And so it's where is that this feeling of being nurtured and loved? Are
Mm-hmm.
you getting that every
Mm-hmm.
day, every other day? Are
Mm-hmm.
you, is that coming into your life, or is that something that's missing? And
Mm-hmm.
and it can be brought in.
So, how would somebody bring that into their life? So, I mean, I know there's always the working on the stuff internally and bring it to yourself. So, how could they bring that to them from an external?
Yeah. So most of it is this, we've got mind work and journaling, and that's kind of internal, but a lot, we are external beings.
Our
So there's
vibration.
so many ways to
Mhm.
bring in feeling loved, right? Whether it's you love the sunset, so you're intentional about getting out there and watching it, right? At least once a week. Or and this is where coaching gets really like individual, right? We kind of scratch the surface and cultivate things in each person's life because everybody has their own answers inside of them. But other ways would be, is we kind of go back. So if this feeling of being loved and nurtured, how was that expressed at different points in your life? And can you bring that back in, right? What if it was growing up, you had these like fuzzy socks that you just put on and you loved them, right? Well, let's see if we can find them somewhere and bring that and give you those feelings again, because that's where this unhappiness comes from, is what we feel is missing.
It's remind me of this book that I revisited. No, I'm spacing creating moments of joy. I think that is. I'll think of it when I'm not thinking of it, but it's every day of
Right.
the week. Yeah. Do you know the book? It's
Mm.
well, it's every day of the year. And I think she used to write a lot of Victorian books and stuff on the history and stuff. So I think it's called Simplicity or something, but every day there's something to do that can bring you, moments of joy in your own life. It could be like sipping the tea. It could be doing discovery journals. I mean, it was written in 1995. We don't really have magazines anymore where we put them on the side of our bed and create an illustrated discovery journal. We put it in
Yeah.
Pinterest. So,
Right.
but that's what it was. It makes me think of, because every day you read it and it really, like, oh, well, go for a walk, or, look at the sunset. It brings things into your own life to really appreciate and do. I can't think of it, the name of it,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's,
it sounds amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
And to
it's,
have that guidance, right?
yes,
Like, because sometimes that's in midlife, we're so overwhelmed and we're kind of like on this mental overload. So if somebody could be like, just try this today, just
yes.
try this today. I mean, like, what a relief.
Yes, and it's funny because the way I discovered it, so I had this book years ago and I've moved several times, and I don't know if it made it to this last move, but I was in the library and just walking by a bookshelf to go to my where I was working at a table, and it's like, oh, there's that pink binder. Like when you're drawn it, I was drawn my attention right there. I'm like, oh, pink binder. And I
Oh,
pulled it out. I'm
wow.
like, oh, I gotta do this. So I have it
Yeah.
checked out. I owned it somewhere, but I have it checked out. But you get to check it out about 6 times. And then I'll check it out on my Los Angeles library. And then I'll go back and check it out again from the
Oh,
library.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So little stuff like that can help be a guidepost. And we had mentioned earlier about how many women are like, oh my God, is this it? They're dealing with the mess, thinking their life is over after they reached a certain age. You reached it like way earlier than I did. I mean, I went through a lot of stuff in my 40s as well, but I still felt like a rock star. It's when I got into like probably the last 2 years, I'm like, things are changing a little bit, like not physically. And then I'm going through a lot internally as well with the moods. And I know a lot of women like the moods, like maybe there's anxiety, maybe that comes with, midlife. Like where can I where can I channel this energy to create
Yeah.
something good in my life? Like it's not over. There's so much. 50s, 40s are not the same as they were years ago. Like the world is our oyster. We're
Totally.
healthier than ever. We've got more knowledge and wisdom than ever, even though I think a lot of us are returning back to the wisdom of our elders and ancestors before, because there's so much value. There was so much good in that, like, because they were so much more connected to the earth and the moon and the stars and the rhythms
Totally.
and all that and community. So we are returning more to that. So,
Yeah.
what are some of the common challenges that women in midlife face? And how do
Okay.
you guide them to overcoming them?
Yeah. So there are a lot of different challenges for different people. And so when it comes to kind of these basic ones, right? I think basic meaning a lot of the symptoms that come from estrogen decline. And so I think a lot of it comes from knowledge, and then that can lead to compassion. And when you have this knowledge of, yeah, I'm in the middle of a transition, can we be a little gentler with ourselves, right? And then even knowing how to navigate different seasons within our life. Like you had talked about the moon. Well, even if you no longer get a period, you can still sync up with the moon and have this kind of flow of cyclical feelings of letting go and making some more intentional things. It's a rest period. And so we can always find ways that we can connect with our body and our mind and our soul that help us then to kind of have this self-compassion and allow ourselves to, I almost feel like it's just allow yourself to be, right? The judgment comes from, oh, things look different now, right? Now we're comparing, and or they look older than I do, or they look younger than I do, like all of this comparison. Whereas if we have our self-compassion that we're all going through something, and keep ourselves in connection with other women, I think is huge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So not comparing ourselves and or compares to others and how we were before, and being able to like love and accept where we are right now. A lot of
Yeah, I think a lot of women take and say, "Oh, I used to be able to do this," right? Or I was talking with a client last night and it was like I'm so frustrated because I used to exercise like this and now it's harder. And now I notice that doing this bothers me, right? And so where can we find this grace and compassion in saying, okay, yeah, so it's almost like it, if we look at everything, everything is useful till it's not, right? So we kind of stopped playing with Legos when we were 10,
Mhm.
right? We stopped, making, like, having friendship bracelets until we were out of high school, right? So it's almost like what we enjoy is going to change. No one's going to force you then to do these things now when they just don't work anymore.
Mhm.
There's a Buddhist kind of parable that this man is walking and he gets to a river and he can't cross it, and someone gives him a canoe, so he uses it, and he's so fearful that he might need it again, so he carries the canoe on the rest of the journey. Things are useful until they're not anymore, and that's when we can take pause and reevaluate and say, okay, what I used to do may or may not, was working for me then, but it may or may not be beneficial for me now, who I am right now in this time. And we all want to live our best right now in this time.
Mhm. The beauty of the present moment.
Yeah.
I always think of Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle is the one, like, right, the power of now. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I remember the name of that book. It's
Oh,
Simple
good.
Abundant. It's Simple Abundance.
Okay.
Have you ever heard
Yes.
of it?
I am now remember, it's like got a very
Okay.
flourishy
Yeah.
cover,
Hold on. I'm
right?
going to go grab it.
Yes, I am
Pause.
remembering this.
Pause for 2 minutes. Figured I might as well show it for the video portion.
Yeah.
Okay. So Simple Abundance.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I love it.
It's a good pickup, and it's still pretty much the beginning of the year. I mean, it's going to be mid-April when this is out. So I just saw that just saw the pink. I'm like, whoop. And when intuition says pick it up, you take it
Yes.
home. So this is a
Yeah.
great book. So you can start in April and then do one a day, but then you can go back to January and like read
I love
and catch
that.
up.
You know
Yeah.
what's so funny is when I was in high school, my mom had that book and
Yeah.
she was probably going
Really?
through menopause.
Oh yeah. 95. It came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that I was in college. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I remember that.
It's so crazy how the world was so much different back then. Like, I'm like, okay, that was 95. I don't have magazines. I don't, some of this
Right.
stuff.
But
Yeah,
there's something about like that creative
it
pen to
is.
paper, cutting stuff up. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I definitely prefer a good old, mood board or a
Yeah.
vision board over Pinterest any day.
Yeah, because you can touch it. You touch it. I have some stuff that I've pasted in some journals, and I still look at it. It's like I touch it. You cut it out. You put it in there. So
Yeah.
where would you get magazines right now? I mean, without paying like $10 for a
Yeah.
magazine,
Right.
you'd need six of them. Where do they get rid
Yeah.
of magazines? I wouldn't mind doing that again, but
Oh, yeah. I
mhm,
think there's still some magazines that are affordable. They're
mhm.
definitely not what they used to be. But there's also a lot of free health magazines that have a ton of good
Oh yeah,
pictures and good words that, like, if you want to
okay.
create a vision board, yeah.
Like the stuff that you get outside of your coffee shop, or it might be
Yes.
outside a yoga studio, like natural health or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll start doing that, throwing it in. It's good.
Yeah.
Creation, mind, images, pictures, feelings. So, yeah. So I want to go into some of your certifications. You've got so many cool certifications like life designer coaching, thought coaching, quantum time technique. I'm fascinated with the quantum and mindfulness facilitation. So you brings this huge diverse set of tools to your coaching practice. How do these techniques contribute to conscious healing and self-discovery for midlife women?
Yeah, definitely. One of the, I love to learn and I love to work on myself. And so I'll take courses and they may or may not be a certification course. They might be a certification course, but I take it. And my first thought is, I'm using this for myself, but how can I share this with other people? And, and because it's almost like it's being shared with me. I just love sharing all that information. But all of the things that you mentioned, they all fall into one of the pillars. And that's why
Mm,
I'm constantly
mhm,
bulking up my knowledge
mhm,
of each pillar so that I'm able to not only maintain my happiness and my evolution, but I'm able then to share that with my peers and the people that I coach. And I think it just, because so there's this thing like if you don't use it, you lose it. So the more I can share it, the more I'm using it, and so I'm not going to lose that spark for myself. It's sort of
mhm.
selfish, but it works. It's been working wonderfully.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with selfish. Like selfish is such a bad word. We need to be selfish. We need to nurture ourselves first in order to help others as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, it keeps you excited and motivated, and you're always learning something so you can always be giving something new to the people that you're working with. It's authentic.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't recommend or I wouldn't guide a woman to do something that I hadn't tried myself.
Yep.
And I might say, listen, I've tried this. It didn't work great for me, but let's look at how we can apply it for you. Or,
Hmm.
it's not saying this is the only way,
Right.
but it just is having a lot of
I
tools.
am your guru.
Right. Yeah.
No, you don't do it. You listen to me, guru. You don't have a
Exactly. Yes.
fleet of Rolls Royces or a
Right.
harem out.
Yeah. No, that's not happening over here.
Yeah,
But still, yeah.
wild. What was it? Wild Wild Country, the Osho. Did you watch that?
Yes.
That was so
Yes.
interesting.
Crazy, right? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, there's so many. And it is because there's people looking for something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, someone there's followers of Osho, but there's a lot of these teachers that get like a cult like godlike status, but then that's a lot of followers. I feel they have something missing with themselves. They haven't cultivated within themselves that they can find this, so they have to worship something outside of themselves again. So there's always good that a lot of these teachers can good, but then it goes to the extreme because people have something, they're just missing that within themselves, and they don't feel that
Yeah,
they can attain that within
definitely. That's
themselves.
what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save me. So, all right. One more question. I mean, we're going to be wrapping up this soon. We have a couple more questions for you. I want to be respectful of your time. I'd like to talk about some of these things that you like to do on a personal level. Outside of coaching, you're a traveler, a nature enthusiast, and a fan of Gaia. How do these personal interests contribute to your own sense of balance and well being? And how can other women in midlife find and nurture their passions beyond their professional state?
Yeah. For me, it was this lack of being around nature that made me realize I needed more of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was always um like camping, like my first go-to was camping is gross. I don't want to sleep outside. Like all of that, right?
I
And
grew up
so I would
camping.
get right. And so so my husband and I got an RV this past summer. And so traveling and seeing different places is so exciting, and it just allows you, for me, it keeps me right sized. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
always amazed when I'm driving down the highway or you go to a new city. I'm like, there's just so many people in the world. Like and it's this twofold thing of I'm not that important, but I can make my life important to me, right? Like sometimes we make these decisions based on what is everybody going to think? Well, there is so many people in the world that have no idea what I'm doing, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
who we are. And so why do we worry with this big vast of who's going to see, what's going to happen, right? We can live our life and create the life that we want right here, right now, like what you were saying, in the present moment, right? So connecting with nature was a big part of me working on my quote unquote mood, grounding and allowing myself that time to just be. And I mean, I love traveling with my husband and I love doing those fun things. So I think that if there's something that brings you joy, it's being intentional about making that happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Where are some of the places that you go to in your RV? I grew up camping. My family was my parents were teachers, so we'd spend the summers camping all over the place. So we went from tent to pop up to trailer, and then the kids didn't want to be in the trailer with the parents, so we went into tents. And I have a tent. I love it. It is a lot of work. Like you really got to plan for that. But an RV, you probably have your basics in there already, and then you just put your clothes and whatever food you want, and boom, you're out of there. And you're in Rhode Island, so you're, oh gosh, the Eastern Seaboard. Where do you like to
Yeah.
go to? I mean, the
Yeah.
mountains aren't that far from you either. Like,
No, New England is amazing. We have a
oh,
little bit of everything,
yeah,
right? Yeah, so we just got it
the
last summer. So
fall.
we
Okay.
right now it's sleeping for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
But so last summer we did a lot of coastal New England and then into Massachusetts and Maine and just kind of all sorts of areas. Like I love when we can camp and get right up close to a lake or,
Mm-hmm.
a body of water. It's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Have you gone in the fall yet? Because the fall in New England, like, remember the movie Cider House Rules? I fell
Yeah.
in love with it when I was like, oh my God, I love it. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. We did one of our last trips. We went up to New Hampshire. And so it's all that like leaf peeping and it's just beautiful,
Oh, how
right?
nice. I can
Yeah.
just I can feel the crisp air and smell the fireplace. It
Yeah.
sends me. So wonderful. Well, this has been so wonderful. I would love for my audience. I know you have a YouTube channel that you launched, and you launching a group by the time this comes out. It'll be live called the
Yeah.
Learning Circle. It's a membership group. Can you let our audience know more about that and how to find you and work with you?
Yeah, definitely. So my YouTube channel has turned into probably one of the most fun things that I've ever done. And I hesitated to do it for so long. My YouTube channel is called Teachings and Tangents. And it's because I had this fear, and this is what I help other women push through and meet this resistance with grace. And so I had this fear I really wanted to share and kind of have a podcast like you do, but I didn't feel like I could do it.
Of
And
course
so
you can. You can do anything.
I dug deep, and why was I feeling like I couldn't do it?
Right.
And so it came out that because sometimes I'm not that eloquent, and sometimes I go off on tangents, right? And so I was like, okay, well, if I just think of a name and tell them what they're getting, they can't complain. So it's teachings and tangents, and it's so much fun, so much learning. And then bringing together this group coaching program has really been a labor of love. And I can't wait. By the time this launches, we will have been launched, and we'll be full of women who are just looking for support and community and learning and ways to make this the best time of your life, because it's possible. It's so possible.
Yes. I can't wait to see that. It's going to be very successful. A lot of women are going to be so appreciative to have this membership, because you don't feel alone. And a lot of women are working alone now. A lot of them are working from home, and you don't have that office camaraderie. And, we're working in sweats and feeling like a homeless person. When I lived in Portland, I'm like, God, I'm tired of feeling like a homeless person. I look horrible.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy is a study came out of UCLA, and it was like 76% of midlife women feel lonely. Report feeling lonely. And it can either be this physical loneliness that you truly are alone, or this mental loneliness where nobody gets you, no one's understanding. And so I was like, I have to create a community, because like I was telling you before, the second I'm like, okay, this is what I want and need, I know there's other people that do. And so that it just is to create a space of learning and community and fun.
I feel a community is so important, because as women are making so many new, huge transitions in their life, kids gone, all these, their marriage or leaving jobs, their purpose is gone. And, a lot of the friends and family, they've spread out, and you've grown apart. And I find at my age, I lived in I moved up to Portland for a couple of years, and then I moved back to Michigan almost a year ago. It's so hard to make new friends. It's so hard. I'm like, oh, I miss having girlfriends. I have them spread out all over, like back in California, all over the country, but I don't have any physically here. It's nice because you'll be able to build community where maybe they have some people in their own community, but even having a community of women online to connect to, you don't feel so alone. And then you can have visits to meet up in person. You'll connect with maybe one or two other women on a deeper level. And it's just such a wonderful thing to have. And so I thank you so much for creating this.
Yeah, it's so needed.
Yeah, it is. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for joining me today. There's one more question that I would like to ask before we go. It's something I ask all my guests. It's because we're the Awakened Heart podcast. What does it mean for you to live with an awakened heart?
Yeah. To live with an awakened heart, how I maintain feeling my heart is awake is I just always remember that my belief that of the oneness, that we're all one, like, so we're just all connected, right? And that keeps my heart open, is knowing that on some level you're my soul sister, everyone listening is part of this whole collective, and that's what keeps my heart open.
Oh, I love that. Soul sister, go sister.
Moulin Rouge. Yes.
Well, Kathy, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing all your beautiful stories and all your insights. And I can't wait for women on my audience to go and find you and work with you. So you have a wonderful rest of your day. I really appreciate you coming on the Awakened Heart podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Nancy, for having me. This has been amazing. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awakened Heart podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenedheartpodcast.com.